Hi, I'm Jim Brett, President and CEO of the New England Council. Thanks for tuning in to this month's episode of Inside the Corner Office, where we catch up with the leaders of some of our region's most well-respected businesses and organizations to learn more about their career paths and about the institutions they lead. This month, I had the pleasure of talking with Lesli Suggs, the President and the CEO of the Home for Little Wanderers. Lesli and I discussed her own career path in social work that led her to her current role leading the oldest child welfare agency in the United States. We also talked about some of the critical challenges that the organization is working to address, from children's mental health challenges to youth homelessness. As always, I thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the conversation. Thanks very much for taking the time to join me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
You know, one of the most interesting parts of this series is learning more about some of the incredible leaders that we have in New England and what drives them and how they have reached the point where they are in their career. So let's start there and talk a little bit about your professional path. Your background is in social work. What inspired you to pursue a career in this field?
Well, I actually started out as a musician. I went to school, I went to college with the intention on earning my degree in voice study. I played string bass, I sang, I played piano, and I made Texas All-State Choir, which is where I grew up, which is kind of a big deal. It's a big state, and I was in the All-State Choir, and that afforded me some opportunities. So went to TCU on a voice scholarship and got there and, really immersed in that. And what I realized is that I had two options. I was either going to education, teach or be an opera singer in Paris. And I didn't really have the talent to do that. So
Yeah.
I said, what am I going to do? And I had a long history in my, a lot of involvement in volunteering in organizations. I grew up in a family that really valued giving back in the community, and I volunteered for Habitat a couple of times, and really tried to take that passion and turn it into a career. And I had a mentor who said, you should think about social work. I'm like, oh, really? There's like a degree in this where I could actually study about how to be effective and then turn that commitment to my community into a profession. And that's exactly what I did. My father grew up poor in Oklahoma. Their family were tenant farmers, and he worked hard to bring our family into what he considered to be, sort of the middle class. We grew up in Arlington, Texas, and that value of hard work, but what that means, like he never took that for granted, and that giving back and understanding what we have was important. And so that was all of that came together for me. And I got into social work, got an internship working with high-risk youth at a halfway house in Texas, value that experience. And then my first job, it's exactly what I did for my first job.
So you've been at the helm with the Home for Little Wanderers since 2018. Tell us a little bit about your career path that led you to that current role that you have right now.
Sure. So I moved to Massachusetts in 1988, worked as a residential counselor, and kind of worked my way up in different levels of different positions for a variety of organizations in Massachusetts. Came to the Home in 2018 as our vice president overseeing behavioral health work, and then was promoted into operations. And then about 6 years ago became the CEO. My commitment, my work in the beginning was really providing direct services. I was working in a residential program, and then I did outreach work. I was in kids' homes in Fall River, New Bedford, and then just took on increasing levels of responsibility. I'm sort of a typical firstborn kid, and I just sort of found myself in positions of leadership. I liked managing things. I liked running things. For example, in high school, worked for Six Flags Over Texas, and actually became the ride foreman of the runaway mine train. And back in the day, I'm kind of proud of that, because back in the day, roller coasters weren't computerized, and I had to make sure that the roller coaster went out safely and brought people back in safely, and I had a schedule to manage and all of that. So probably my first management job. So that bringing together of direct work with kids and families, and then what it means to run a program or run a division. I've been able to blend those two things and feel so privileged to be the leader of this legacy organization. It is such an honor to steward this organization that has such longevity. And I've had great mentors along the way, both social workers, but also finance people and community members and legislators. It's all kind of sort of came together for me in this incredible opportunity to lead the home.
Wow. You're the first social worker to lead the Home for Little Wanderers. So how do you think your background shapes you as you approach this new organization position?
Yeah, I've done the work, right? I'm a social worker first and always. And then I'm the CEO of this organization. So we're a complicated place. We're large. We're about, some people may not know this, we're about almost $90 million in revenue. We have, if fully staffed, about 1,000 employees. We're in 3 states. It's a complicated place and with an incredibly worthy mission. So to do our very best work requires that I have a workforce that understands that vision, understands that strategy, will come along with me on that journey, and that I have influence. And I think any leader needs to have needs influence. And in having influence, I need to have credibility. I've done every job in this organization almost myself. I know what it takes to do the work. I know how hard this work is. I know the skills that are required. I feel like I understand the regulatory and compliance environment, like all those pieces. I get it. And so I think I've been able to establish trust with our workforce and lead through really challenging times. I mean, think about the pandemic, for goodness sake, right? Like, I can't imagine a time that this organization was more stressed, although given our history, my gosh, we got through the Civil War. So that ability to relate and to have that expertise and then advocate and lead in a way with those values as a social worker, I think has been very, very helpful to this organization.
Where does the funding come from? Is it a mixture of state, federal, private donations?
Most of our income, about 85% of it, is what I say is earned income. It is income from HHS. We bill insurance. It's Medicaid dollars. It's state contracts funded through the Department of Children and Families, the Department of Mental Health, DPH, those kinds of funds. And then we always have to fundraise to mind the gap between what our rates pay us to do and then the way that we want to deliver the services, the way that we want the quality in which we want to deliver those services. So we do fundraise as well to get to that place where we're made whole and can run this organization.
I think many in Boston area are familiar with the Home for Little Wanderers, but may not be aware of the organization's incredible history and the fact that the organization is over 200 years old. Tell us a little more about this extraordinary history and how that has evolved over the years.
Yeah, it is truly incredible. We are over 200 years old. In fact, next year it will be our 225th birthday. We go all the way back to Abigail Adams, who started the Boston Female Asylum, which was an orphanage for young girls. And today, and we've grown over time, merged with other organizations. There was another organization in Boston that was established in 1860. We merged with them in 1999. People often think of us as the Knights Children's Center that was located in Jamaica Plain. It's no longer there. I hear all the time, I kid you not, at least every other week, I hear a story about a family who was either the member of their family was adopted through the home or lived at the home, that Knights Children's Center. My family always donated toys to the kids of the Home for Little Wanderers, or my parents threatened to send me to the Home for Little Wanderers if I didn't behave, that kind of thing, right? And core to our mission has been about taking care of children who've experienced, really challenging, horrific circumstances. that is still core to what we do. The work that we do is about the well-being of children and ensuring that children are taken care of. That work, though, has shifted and changed over the years as we understand what it means to take care of children. Children should not grow up at the home of little wanderers like they did back in the day. That's not a place for children to grow up. Children need to grow up in safe and loving families. And so as the field has better understood what works for kids and how best to intervene, the home has been a leader in that. And that also, that history is rich in terms of our advocacy and staying ahead of what we know kids need. We launched, gosh, about, I don't know, 11 years ago, what we call our permanency initiative. And it was really the notion that children do need to grow up in families, and we need to do everything we can to return kids to family, either family of their own or kinship, or find their forever family, but also lean into keeping kids in the community and in their family. So the work that we do is really focused there. And I talk about it a lot. The outcomes for kids that leave child welfare without family are not good. They're just not. There's always outliers, kids that do amazing, young people that do amazing things. But kids who grow up and don't have family, don't have that permanency in their life when they leave child welfare at 18, have increased rates of incarceration, unplanned pregnancy, substance use. They are not equipped to be fully functioning adults out there in the world. Most 18-year-olds are not, and certainly the kids that have come into care and had the challenges that they've had that we serve are not in that position. So that's our work today, and that involves a lot of just a wide range of programs that meet those needs. I'm happy to talk about some of that, but it all boils down to ensuring kids grow up in safe and loving families.
Right. The population is what, between 5 and 18?
We serve children birth all the way to age 26.
Okay.
We have adoption, foster care, group homes, residential programs, and then we serve thousands. We have about 400 kids who are in our care on any given day in those settings. But then we serve thousands of kids in the community. We are, for example, in about 120 public schools. We're the largest provider of mental health services in Boston public schools, clinicians that are embedded in schools all the way up the North Shore. We're in every borough of New York City in those schools, again, out in the community, attending to children's well-being. We do intensive family work. I want to give an example because I think stories are really powerful to illustrate the point. And I have so many examples of stories like this, but young mom challenged with a substance use issue. Kids go into care, little ones 2 and 4. They're in one of our foster homes. She works her butt off to deal with her substance issue, is clean, doing well, works with our permanency team. Children are our foster home, working with our foster mom who's supporting. And those kids just return to her care. And now she's successfully parenting those little ones. Now, that is a much better outcome for her children than those children staying in foster care and growing up in a residential. And it's cost effective, right? Like that's just a better outcome. And so it's huge focus of our work today. And we're proud to do it.
Yeah, those kind of stories make your day. They give you
oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. Give you the energy and the excitement. Yeah, I can see why. That's great. Now let's talk about some of the services that you provide. Mental behavioral health, in particular for the youth. Talk a little more about the services available, what you're seeing in recent years in terms of the demand of these types of services.
Well, unfortunately, the demand is there, and unfortunately, we're there to meet it as best we can. Workforce is an issue, but as I said, the bulk of our services are out in the community, in schools and in early learning centers, for example. We have clinicians that work with itty bitty ones, like 2, 3, and 4. all to, and to ensure that they are successful in preschool and they don't get expelled from preschool. Believe it or not, little kids get expelled from preschool. So if there's somebody worried about a kiddo, we're in there working with the teacher, working with that young person, working with that little one's parents, trying to figure out what's going on for that kiddo that they're struggling. Because we know if they can do well in school and stay in school, they're going to function better. So that whole issue around mental health and what it means for kids to feel less anxious, not depressed, and have friends and engaged and feel successful. We know that that's a part of our work. The mental health piece, we work with kids that have experienced complex trauma, often are in family systems that are incredibly stressed, maybe issues of poverty, maybe issues of parents' own mental health concerns. And that work, our work there in that space has grown. And that framework of, again, keeping kids in the community and helping parents successfully parent a child who may be struggling is so important. So that work that we do, I think we see as critical in keeping kids out of care, but also returning kids into the community. I mean, I should speak to the mental health crisis for kids. It's been front and center in the work that we do. And given our presence in schools, we've seen such a demand for those services. It was true before the pandemic, but the pandemic absolutely exacerbated that in all the ways that we understand and know today. Kids like depressed, anxious, maybe not coming to school consistently. The number of referrals that we get from teachers, pediatricians, parents saying, I am really worried about this kiddo. Either they are so withdrawn and isolating, depressed. I'm really worried about their suicidality, or they're angry. And that work is work that we do, and we've only seen the need increase. We have right now currently a wait list of about 300 kids waiting for outpatient services just in our school-based work alone. The need is there. And then we run our we have residential programs, group homes. We have 3 residential schools, large campuses, beautiful. One is in Walpole, one is in Plymouth, the other is in New Hampshire, that have special education teachers, occupational therapy, nurses, social workers, psychiatry, opportunity for kids. We have vocational training. These programs are for kids. Some live with us and go to school with us full-time year-round. We have other students that come for the day. This is a place where kids who have not experienced success in school perhaps need that out-of-home placement and are not going to do well in a public school, or just haven't been able to come to us, and we level set. Like we are leaning into education, we're leaning into the trauma that they may have experienced, and really provide that holistic setting so they stay in school and they graduate. We are a real school for kids that really do go on, and some go to vocational training, some go to college. It is, we see that as a very important part of the work that we do. One stat I'd like to talk about is that for foster care kids, they the completing college, we just don't see, it's about 3% of foster care kids actually go to college, maybe 2% graduate. And the driving issue is often school disruption. We see kids in our foster care and our group homes, or that come into our schools, that have been in 7 different schools, 12 different schools, 14 different schools. Can you imagine, as a young person, going to all those different schools? Just even if you have no special education needs and are completely regulated kiddo that knows how to sit in a desk and listen to a lesson plan and translate that into work, going to different schools and coming to, you start school in April and they've already finished the segment of math that you haven't been exposed to, and then you're behind, and all that goes into that. It's important that we have schools like the home provides, that understands those needs, understands complex trauma, understands learning disabilities, so we can keep kids in school. Get kids to graduation. Super important part of the work that we do.
What is the average time that a client would spend in a group home?
It depends. It might be 6 months if we have a kiddo that comes in and we're trying to shore up a family, or there's been a family identified and we're working with family, or it could be as long as 2 years. And sometimes it's longer than that, and that's not okay. That's the permanency initiative that I spoke about, where we're working, we're driving. It used to be back in the day when I kind of started in the field, where an organization like the Home, we would do the trauma work, we'd do the treatment. We'd say, Department of Children and Families, you go find the family and you tell us when that kiddo is ready. Well, we don't accept that today. Like, we start right from the beginning. In fact, can you imagine anything more? When we started our permanency initiative, we looked at all of the kids in our care, the kids that were the most acute behaviorally. I call them like the rocking and rolling kids, like they just are having a hard time. Those were the kids that had the most permanency disruption, or they had no permanency plan. They had no hope. What's going to happen to me? Where am I going to go? Why am I here? I'm still mad that I came into care and I'm here in this place. You've got to give kids hope, and they have to know who's going to take care of them, and where are they going to go? Like, all kids the kids are incredibly resilient. Oh my gosh, it's amazing what kids and young people can do. But you have to give them hope, and they have to know that they're loved and that someone cares about them other than the staff that are working with them inside placement. So that piece around moving kids as quickly as it's appropriate. Kids need to spend the time with us that they need to get better, to feel better, to have their trauma addressed and treated. But then we're going to work to find family, and that is a part of the treatment. That's a part of how we provide for kids.
You know, an issue that unfortunately is at an all-time high, that's the youth homelessness. And how does the Home, work to support children and teens who are truly struggling with homelessness?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that question, because that work also evolved directly from our permanency work. We saw young people who would get to age 18, if they didn't sign themselves into the care of the Department of Children and Families, a lot of kids are done, then they were off on their own. And here we had worked with these young people. In my opinion, child welfare had failed its promise to find family for that young person, and literally packing up kids' bags and dropping them off at a homeless shelter. And we just couldn't accept that. So we started our programming some time ago. The first program we opened served 9 young people in Roxbury. We had a wait list of 100 young people, the young adults for that program. And we've just grown that work. We now have serve about 160 young adults in a variety of settings. We have scattered site apartments. We have a program, it's like a dorm-like setting called Somerville Village, that serves young women who want to be in college, but were homeless or at risk of homelessness. We have a transition shelter that's in Mission Hill. We have scattered site apartments in New Hampshire. We know what's possible when young people don't have to worry about where they're going to sleep at night. And we call them life coaches. I say it's their pseudo parent who's guiding them, coaching them, helping them through navigate life decisions, relationship challenges, education decisions. And we want to continue to expand that work, because I see it as a moral imperative. It's our promise of kids. We're going to stay involved until they successfully launch into adulthood. And I also, from an economic perspective, here we've invested hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars sometimes into the well-being of a child, and then to not finish. Would you ever do that to your own child? Never, never. And you think about who you were at 18 or who your children were at 18, think about launching them all alone, by themselves. We stay in it. And again, the stories are incredible. There's a young woman who came into Somerville Village when we first opened that program. I stayed pretty connected to her, and she came in, she was at such a determined kiddo. She was homeless. She had recently been rooming in a boarding house. She had paid $700 a month. She was at Roxbury Community College. She had 2 jobs and an internship. She lost her housing, couldn't afford it, couldn't keep up. She was living in the warehouse of one of the part-time jobs. She comes into Somerville Village. We said, the first thing you're doing is going to quit one of those part-time jobs. We're going to help you graduate from Roxbury Community College, which she did. Then she got an internship at Europe, Harvard Business School. Then they hired her. Then she applied to Northeastern. She went to Northeastern. She graduated from Northeastern last year. Whole different outcome. And she would say to you, she's on a youth advisory board that we run. She would say to you, that program saved her life. She had a place to live and she had guidance and support, myself included. Some of the lunches I had with her, no, you might want to think about this or think about that kind of thing. Those stories are endless, and we see it as just critical to, again, the serving young people. And we participate in a variety of community advocacy spaces around youth homelessness. We've served on the Mayor's Advisory Board. Mayor Walsh put a stake in the ground around youth homelessness, and we served in that group. Just is one of the stakeholders in the community that is looking to make sure that those young people are well served.
And what is the waiting list like?
Oh my gosh, like I don't even have a number, but
It's long.
it's long.
Yeah.
It is long. Yeah.
You know, another aspect, and you already touched on it, the schools. And I don't think people realize when they talk about Home for Little Wonders, they run schools. Can you talk a little more about the schools that you run and how so proud you are because of the success that they're able to achieve with the students?
Oh my gosh, I am. I did a tour. I hosted the president and chairman of the CEO and chairman of Citizens Bank, actually, at our Walpole site, and they have a particular interest in workforce development, and we have a very strong vocational program down there. We offer horticulture, culinary, wood shop, auto. It is robust and beautiful, and a very impressive academic curriculum. It sits on about 146 acres, and the young people who hosted the tour prepared all the food. They did the menu. They have a rolling coffee shop, so they have a little business, and they keep the books and they manage the cash. And they hosted the tour, and it was phenomenal. And he was so impressed. And that's the kind of work that happens. You think about again, the way that I described often the academic challenges that kids have experienced, and maybe they said, look, I don't think I'm cut out for school. I don't want to do school. And then they come to us and they realize that they can. And in fact, not only they can thrive. One of the young women, she just found out she was going to Johnson and Wales. So really proud of the work that we do, but it is also incredibly, it takes the skill set of the folks that are providing that work. Our teachers are amazing. Not only are they certified special education teachers, but they understand trauma-informed classrooms, how to help kids give the breaks that they need to be able to stay in it and do the work that they need to do. And I think I already described many of the roles that we have in those in our schools. But again, I see that as we are, a lot of people don't know, but it is a part of that whole continuum of care that we provide to make sure kids are successful and successfully launched.
You know, this Inside Corner Office series has given me the opportunity to talk with dozens of CEOs over the past years. And, the one topic that always comes up, regardless of what industry we're talking about, is workforce shortages. And I'm just thinking of what you have on your plate with the schools, the group homes, and mental health services. How in heaven's name are you able to supply and recruit enough personnel to address all of those unmet needs that you face day in and day out?
It's challenging, and we don't have enough staff. We don't have the workforce that we need to do this work. It was hard before the pandemic. It got harder. It just got harder. And it's a culmination of things. Every industry is talking about it, to your point, but we have an aging demographic. We have an environment here in Boston that is, it's hard to afford to live here. Housing is, I think, a huge issue, and I can speak more to that in a little bit, maybe when we touch on some advocacy, public policy advocacy pieces. We are, and I am also out there talking with our legislators and talking with our administration about salaries and the rates that we provide. The bottom line is that our salaries are it's hard to be competitive. We have this mental health crisis. We have clinicians that can go work in private practice. They say we don't have a shortage of clinicians. We have a shortage of clinicians that can afford to do community-based work even when they want to, because the salaries are just not where they need to be. I'm glad that people are listening and paying attention to salaries. I think our administration does understand that. Certainly our legislators understand that. We have a great friend, Senate President Karen Spilka, who understands our industry. But yet I still need to talk about it. And I need to I see that as a part of my role. I think people often say, and please, I understand where it comes from. It comes from the heart, but man,
Yeah.
you're doing important work. You're doing God's work. But implied in that is a little bit like you're a volunteer and you need to sign, you don't need to be paid well. But our staff often work two and three jobs. I worked, when I started in the field, I always did some private
Mhm.
practice work and I worked at Macy's.
Yeah, sure.
That's what's required, right? And it shouldn't have to be that way. So wages are important to attract people. We're doing creative stuff. We've launched international recruitment. Right now we have 70 employees who we recruited from other countries to come here and do that work. We're sponsoring them, green card all the way to visa,
Yeah.
and we're providing some housing. We have to do that. I think we would have taken beds offline if we hadn't been able to bring that workforce in. But we have wait lists in every single program we run, every single one.
Right.
And that is very much driven by workforce.
So would you think immigration would be one of the things that the state and the federal government should be more vigilant and advocating for? Because it's very tight right now on getting the visas and the green cards. And so I've heard others say that in the human service field, they wish they could get more, visas coming in, but it's very, very, very difficult. So
it is. It's certainly gotten better. And the border bill, and all that came with that probably would have been certainly helpful. But this administration has been, I really appreciated Maura Haley's leadership and the Lieutenant Governor's leadership around getting some federal support to fast track work, authorizations to work. And they've been a real partner with the human service industry. I know some of my colleagues have hired some of the Haitian immigrants that have come in. And so that's been, we're working in partnership because there are folks coming into the country that are highly skilled, have credentials that can meet those needs. And they're fantastic employees. I mean, the international employees we have are keeping our New Hampshire program open, and we're grateful for that partnership.
What is the turnover rate in the group homes for the personal care attendants?
It's too high. It's embarrassing. We've got if our residential counselors, the turnover rate hovers right around 39-40%. It's hard work. I did that work.
I know that.
And man, I did it for just 2 years, just under 2 years. You do the work, and then I was promoted, but it is hard work, and it is hard. And
then on top of it, to get $16 or $18 an hour.
I know. We're proud. I know. It's hard. We've got it up to like 20.
20.
But it's still, you can make 20 at Dunkin' Donuts. You make more at Amazon and a lot less headache. So, but I say our staff are passionate and feel good about what they're doing. But yes, workforce is front and center. And, a part of the work that I do as well is advocating for the things I know can support workforce and support people coming into the field. Things like loan forgiveness, making it. I got my undergrad in social work, worked for 6 years, decided I needed to go back and get a master's degree. At the time, there was not a state accredited program, so you had private school options. I went to Simmons. I was very grateful. My father paid for my undergrad. I didn't have student loan debt, but graduate school was on my own. I went to Simmons, very expensive. 2 years later, a lot of school loans, and my salary increased by $2,000. So the return on investment, if you were guiding your own child about going investing and getting that master's degree, right? So we have to create pathways for people to enter, not have student debt, given they're not going to get the high salary. And it's just another example of things we can do to support and attract good candidates.
Let me ask you another question, because I'm putting my other hat on, being the chairman of the President's Committee on Disability, and we've been working on access to dental care. Do you have dental facility for your patients, clients, students? And if you don't,
we have community providers that handle their dental care. We've experimented a little bit through the years of having folks come in and provide that care, but we really do want our children to be out in the community. We want to establish a doctor, a pediatrician, a dentist, that experience of going to the dentist office versus having dental come to you. We really try to create that normalizing environment as much as we can for those kids.
Interesting. Here's a softball question for you. For anyone that's tuning in and feeling inspired, just listening to you, and they say, I want to help. So how can I either get involved and help support the mission of the Home for Little Wanderers?
So a variety of ways. One, there's always financial support. We welcome that. And we enjoy some great relationships with different companies. I always think we have great corporate sponsors. The Somerville Village program I spoke about. Breckenridge is a company that supports that program uniquely, and they do scholarships and tuition and provide mentors. So really great partnerships with some of the companies out there, and also individual donors. Donations are wonderful. We have a holiday toy drive. We are often reaching out through social media at different part times of the season. Right now we're going into summer. Families can be incredibly stressed with the things they need to shore kids up, swimsuits for swim camp and all those kinds of things. So donations are incredibly helpful. And by the way, poverty is an issue that I think often gets mistaken for neglect and abuse. And so we really think about that and again, how to support and shore up our families. So donations are welcomed. And mentorship. The folks that come into our organization, and we need mentors for our kids. And that is so, if you've got the time or the capacity to mentor a young adult or a young kiddo, those relationships can be so powerful. We just honored a woman who has mentored another young person from our school in Plymouth, and she's been involved now for 5 years, and she started as a mentor, just developing this one-on-one relationship with this young person, and been incredibly impactful to her. So variety of ways to get involved. You can always just go to our website and reach out.
That's great. So what if there was the governor was here listening, people in Washington were listening, they would ask the question, what can we do for you?
I think I touched on it, ways that we can make this field attractive, and that is compensation, higher rates for clinicians that work in mental health clinics. Our insurance rates are too low. It is fair, equitable wages between what private nonprofit providers, the work that we do, and what the state, same position. Often they have the same position, and people can go there and make $20,000 more a year and have the promise of a state pension or retirement. Our rates don't allow us to do that. We do that at the home, but it's not because our rates support it. We certainly don't have a pension. So those kinds of things I think are incredibly important, but also the continued partnership. I've been very impressed by the work that the Healy administration is doing, the advocacy that you hear from the governor around housing. Housing, for example, it's an issue for our workforce. It's an issue for the clients and families that we serve. It's certainly an issue here in Massachusetts. New England Council has taken such a leadership role in that. And those things that support workforce and help lift kids out of poverty. I was actually just in DC talking with the Mass delegation, and we're lucky to have the Mass delegation that we do, talking about, for example, the child tax credit. That is really impactful to the kids and families that we serve, that keep them from being on the brink. And that has a direct correlation to the kids that enter child welfare. Poverty, disproportionality, those are big drivers. And so that advocacy and being, partnering together to understand those issues and that the policies that we need to support, I think are critical to our work.
The number of children that were lifted out of poverty with that child tax credit is extraordinary. The numbers are powerful.
Powerful. You can't argue with that. You just can't.
You can't. So hopefully the delegation will urge people beyond New England to reinstate this, but not just temporarily, but
that was my message.
Okay, well, it's a good message, but the numbers are on your side. So, and we have champions like Jim McGovern from Worcester. we talk about hunger as an issue. I mean, 1 out of 7 people in Massachusetts, they go to bed hungry. And I mean, it's a real problem, but we are blessed to have a delegation. They get it. They understand the issue, and they fight and advocate. So we're very blessed there. My final question would really be about you and your daily professional life. You deal with so much stress and heavy and emotional challenging issues. We mentioned a couple of them: children's mental health, youth homelessness. How do you unwind once you get out of the office and take care of your own mental health? Do you sing all the time, or what do you do to kind of calm down and let the stress unwind from you?
Well, I do sing, but probably by myself in the car.
Okay.
My kids don't like to listen to me sing.
Mhm.
But I mean, I love music, and that's an important part of my life. But I work out. Like I started doing that when I was about 21. I walk, I run. Actually, I ran the Boston Marathon, my only marathon, one and done last year, not this past marathon. I ran that with my daughter. She and I ran for the home.
And what
She
was your
had done.
time? What
Oh
was
my,
your
you don't
time?
want to know. I was
Okay,
I
I was
was
just
in the
curious.
I was in the
Just
group
curious.
that didn't get a medal at the end. Let's just say that.
You did
So
it. You did it.
I did it. I
Wow,
finished
awesome!
it.
Congratulations.
So,
Yeah,
yeah, it was really cool. And I did that with my daughter and my
great.
partner Rich and his son
Right.
Sam. So that was
Wow.
fantastic. So that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm a crazy baseball mom. My son plays
Mm-hmm.
baseball, my daughter plays basketball, so I'm a sports mom on the weekend, and just leaning into that and are ways that I take care of myself and just get outside a little bit of the work that we do day to day. But the work we do drives me. It is truly a passion. So it's I
Well, it
see it that
shows.
way and I live it that way.
Yeah, obviously it shows, and I just want to again thank you for joining me today. More importantly, thank you to you and your extraordinary and dedicated staff for the incredible work that they do day in and day out to support the children and the young people in all of New England. I know you're here. You're in New Hampshire, and I also believe you have some presence in New York as well. So I mean, you spread out. So I just want to say thank you again. It's a gem to have the Home for Little Wanderers here in New England. We're proud to have them as a New England Council member, but the extraordinary work that you do day in and day out, it's almost like it's miracles you're performing on some of these young children and making their lives more productive and more making them prominent citizens in the community. And it's God's work. So I just want to say thank you. And to those who are tuning in, thank you. And I hope you enjoy the conversation. I hope you found it as informative as I did. And I thought I knew quite a bit about the home. I learned even more. So I hope that all of you that have tuned in have found it as enjoyable and informational. Be sure to tune in next month when our guest will be Bill Doyle, the co-founder of Novacure, an incredible innovative company located right here in New England that is working to treat cancer.